So with that, I'm going to give you a little more insight into what this no rules approach looked like in our household. And so I'll give you some lessons learned from me as a kid and looking back at it, what actually happened during that time. And so this was our family, and I love to share this picture with you because there's one main reason I love this picture. And no one usually knows why, but this is me, and I look pretty cute. I'm in the blue vest. But the reason, not because I look cute, but the reason I love showing this picture is I like pointing out how funny looking my brother is at this age as a baby. So me and Joseph, we are the two youngest of the kids. So we experienced most of the no rules approach. And it was a very different childhood. And a lot of people might wonder, if you give your kid no rules, that's chaos. It'll never work. And the kids will never do anything or want to do anything if you do that. And it wasn't far from the truth because I had, in my opinion, what I thought was the perfect teenage life. And it was everything you would expect. I had a TV in my room as long as I could remember, and I'd watch maybe 2, 3 hours of TV every night before I went to bed. We'd play video games nonstop because there'd be no limit. Things like church or school were optional, and chores and homework. And so for school, for instance, I lived right next to the school. And so sometimes I didn't want to be at school. And so I'd wait till everyone went to class. And I knew the escape route that I just ditch out the door. And then this was before they have fences now around the school in most schools. But I would just run out the door and before anyone could see me, and I'd just run home. Then I'd be there for the day. Or if I didn't want to and I woke up one day, I could skip a day, or an exam was that day. I'd say, oh, I'm not going that day. But school was an optional thing and grades were never really checked. When I was 16 was probably the pinnacle of the no rules approach for me because at the age of 16, I got a car. My mom gave me a credit card that was attached to their bank account, and she told me to use it whenever I needed it. No curfew. And when I say no punishments, I mean I never had any privileges taken away from me. So I never was grounded, or I never got my credit card taken away, or they never told me you can't use the car now, or took away a cell phone. None of that. And so this was my life, as far as I can remember it. It was pretty free to do whatever I wanted to do. And now with this, though, I began to realize there was a burden almost to be given so much freedom, and what I realized with most of my friends. Because unlike my friends who could always blame their parents for having to go somewhere or be at a service project or do something, I never had that go to as an excuse. I always had to accept whatever I was doing because I chose to be wherever I wanted to be. And I chose to do what, ever I really wanted to do. If I didn't want to be at school, I could leave school. And so I could never really complain too much about that. And it did a couple things to me. It made me really have to understand why I was doing what I was doing or why I wanted to go where I wanted to go. And I often felt the need to escape this freedom. And I can remember even when I was a little kid, there were movies that, might have been inappropriate for me. It's like PG-13 at the time, and I'm maybe a 9-year-old. And I'm asking my parents, can I watch this movie, Mom? Or can I watch this movie, Dad? And they tell me you can do whatever you want. But I kept asking them because I wanted them to tell me, yes, you can watch it, Isaac. Because at that point, once they said I can do it, I knew it meant the responsibility now was on their heads. Because if anything went wrong, I could always then go back to them and say, well, this is your fault. This isn't my fault. You're the one that said I could watch it, or you're the one that told me I could go there and something bad happened. And so I would try some of these tricks, but they'd never buy in. And they'd always, tell me, do whatever you think, Isaac. And that was sometimes more than I could handle. But when I really started thinking about this, it really taught me how to live. because people say, well, yeah, they're not going to go to school then. But there are things about reality and living that I began to learn very quickly. For instance, I learned if I miss more than 9 days of school, the government gets involved and I might have to repeat the year, or the government might take me away from my family if I'm not going to school. So I knew I had a plan to miss 9 days and I couldn't miss more. And so I'd maybe miss 2 days when my favorite video game came out so I could stay up till midnight, buy it, and then play it for 2 days straight. Or it could be that, I just want to ditch days, so I need to leave buffer days. But I learned how to deal with what I had. And people would think I spent a lot of money even with a credit card. But I actually spent less than all of my friends. Because I quickly found out that this credit card is attached to isn't unlimited, and my parents don't have unlimited money. And so of all my friends, I actually spent the least, and I was actually the most responsible with my money because I just didn't spend everything I was received, everything I got as an allowance maybe. And just small other things of learning how to work with the family, learning that my parents are actual human beings, which a lot of times I didn't see them as human beings for a while. I just saw them as a resource. But I quickly began to realize that, if I want to be happy, there's certain things I have to do to live happy, even though I have total freedom. And a lot of my friends, they didn't learn these things because they didn't get the chance. And this is what I mean. When parents set rules, I found for a lot of my friends, the parents were setting a minimum standard. They're saying, these are the house rules. This is my expectations of you. And they're thinking, this is like the minimum. Like, you have to at least do this, but I want you to be a little better. I want you to be a better person than even me. And so they'd set this, but in the kid's mind, all they're thinking is, well, that is the maximum I'm going to give them. So all the kids are trying to do this entire time is saying, how close can I get to these rules to look like I'm keeping them without getting punished and do whatever I want at the same time? Which means the parents, all their time is spent trying to measure if the kids are actually keeping the rules, and then trying to make them keep the rules, and then punishing the child if they don't keep the rules. And so each one is kind of in a silo, only thinking of themselves, not because they mean to, but because the structure itself, they're just trying to maintain this rule system. And it really set a divide between a lot of the parents because of this adversarial approach that it seemed to create. And for me, starting at the age of 15, I started what I call my search for happiness, because although it seems like I had the perfect life doing whatever I wanted to, at the age of 15, I ran into a huge problem, which was I found out I wasn't happy. And like I said, I couldn't blame anyone for my unhappiness like my friends could. And so I began wondering, if I could do whatever I want to do, why am I still not happy? And so I began asking myself this. And I posted my ages through this whole time period, even till now, to teach you even one more thing about my family and about the Japanese culture, a small factoid. I found that Asians, specifically Japanese, stop aging and growing around the age of 15. And so since then, my face really hasn't changed too much. But you will notice that my hair did change. I used to have hair down to my eyes. As I began this change and development, I began making big life decisions that, looking back, I didn't realize how big they were for me. I began cutting my hair. I began replacing the TV in my room with a desk to study. I began serving others, focusing on religion. I quit playing video games at the age of 18, which was huge because we were like video game addicts, like 4 or 5 hours a day playing online. And I began spending more time with the family. And, nobody told me to do any of these things is the key. All of these things, I actually made the decision on my own. For instance, my hair, one day, nobody told me to do it, but I began looking around thinking, everyone around me has short hair and it's clean kept in my family except me and my younger brother. And so I began making adjustments as I looked around, trying to find what was happy. what would produce a happy life. And all these things, though, came from me, which I think was the biggest thing. Because in this picture is a secret, I think, that what made it all work and what allowed me to change and be as happy as I became. And I'll give you a second to look around this picture. If there's one significant thing in this picture that shows the secret of the no rules approach for me, what do you think it is? And it's not, a lot of people always say, oh, the dole box is upside down. That's not it. But you'll notice the big thing here is who's holding the ice cream. And it's me and my brothers, the 3 youngest ones. And the 3 older ones don't have the ice cream. That is the story of my life. I had a lot of mentors of example and support that would help me throughout my whole life. And without them of being examples, I don't know if this no rules process would have worked. And the biggest thing they did was just, they were there for me. They'd give me advice, they'd tell me what to do sometimes, but the biggest thing is they'd cook for me, they'd help me do my homework, they do my homework for me sometimes, they teach me things, and they were just always there for me to teach me a better way to do things. And here's the main thing. They knew a lot of these natural laws that make me happy. They knew going to bed early was a good idea. They knew if you ate healthy, you'd have more energy. They knew if you planned, you'd worry less. I didn't know these things. The thing about it is, in understanding, there's me down here, and all my mentors are up here. They have such a better understanding of life. And because of that gap, we act very differently. And this is the question you want to ask yourself now. What is your desired result? Do I want my child to actually understand things, or do I want them just to do whatever I tell them to do? Because it will produce very different things. For me, I had to make a lot of mistakes in my life. And people always ask me, don't you wish you had someone there to force you to go to school, to force you to eat healthier, to force you to spend more time with your friends and family instead of playing video games? Because I missed out on a lot of things. I had to drop a lot of classes. I missed scholarship opportunities. I missed opportunities with my family. My health probably suffered at that time, and friendships. But I always tell them I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm glad I got to make those mistakes, because people don't understand it takes time and it costs resources to learn and to understand. And just like my mentors, they had to go through their own same learning curve where they had to make the exact same mistakes. And when I look at my friends, a lot of them, they got their perceived freedom when they're in college. And in college is when they started their learning curve. They started to spend all night on video games. They started to eat. They started staying up all night with friends. And they began all these things that I actually learned in high school. And that's the big thing. It takes time and it costs money to learn these things, or resources. And the earlier you can learn these things and the earlier you can make mistakes, the less resources it actually costs. When you make mistakes and you're an adult with kids, it costs a lot more than when you're in high school, just alone, under the mentorship of loving parents.
Thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to our channel for more content. We'll see you next time.